Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Stefanie Dannenmann-Di Palma. I work as an external relations officer at the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. It is my first time being at the Zero Project Conference, my first time ever to entertain a fireside chat, and I thought it would be something more comfortable, but I'm actually quite nervous. But on the other hand, I have a real honor that I am with Marcie Roth today. And Marcie, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marcie Roth, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the World Institute on Disability. And I'm not nervous. I'm just thinking there's no fire here, so we're going to have to start our own.
Exactly, and I think we're talking about a topic today on early warning systems. And Marcie and I keep saying Marcie is my mentor for many, many years now, because I've been 20 years working for the disaster risk reduction environment, and I'm a geologist by training. And I started at the Platform for Promotion of Early Warning. And at that time, we developed an early warning mechanism which we called people-centered. But when we talked about people-centered early warning systems, we didn't think, or we didn't talk about accessibility, we didn't talk about persons with disability. And so it was quite interesting to learn, what does it actually mean, Marcie? And maybe you want to explain that the UN Secretary General has a call on early warning for all, and why are you actually on the board, and why does it matter?
Well, I'm wondering how many of you have heard about the UN Secretary General's Early Warnings for All initiative? Okay, a few of you. So back in 2022, he established a 5-year plan that, and these are his words, so I'm not aggrandizing. He says, by the end of 2027, every person on Earth will have access to early warnings. This is a critically important agenda, and the fact that we are here talking about it, it's important that you understand that the opportunity is ours to make sure that when we're talking about early warnings for all, that we don't mean most or many or some, and that in fact we center the accessibility of early warnings for all to be sure that no one is left behind and that everyone has the opportunity to take their own personal protective measures and as well to be able to support their community and not have to always be the recipients of somebody else's assistance. So I will add one more thing, and that is I've had the incredible, exciting, good fortune to have been appointed to the Secretary General's advisory panel. This is a panel of 23 representatives, each representing a certain sector, and they chose to appoint a person with a disability with expertise in emergencies, disasters, and early warnings to represent all of civil society. I am very honored to be in that position, but it comes with a huge responsibility to make sure that we use this opportunity so that all of civil society has accessible and actionable early warnings.
Exactly, and I think this opportunity needs to be used extremely well and with a sense of urgency as well. Because in 2023, I have conducted a survey on the status of persons with disabilities in disasters. And in 2023, with over 6,000 persons with disability responding to this survey around the world, they have indicated that 84% of those respondents said they have no preparedness plan in place. And 29% they said they would have a lot of difficulties to evacuate if they would receive a warning, and 10% that they wouldn't be able to evacuate at all. And you could look at any place in the world, because we could distinguish that per region, and it became quite clear that there's a sense of urgency. And when we look at the early warning systems, we talk about 4 elements of early warning. One is, the first one is saying you need to know what hazards and risks are in place. The second one is, if you know the hazard, can you monitor it, and you know when a hazard turns into a serious threat? And then if it turns a threat, can warnings be issued and understood and unheard, which is like the technology in place? And then the last element, are you ready? Are you prepared to do the evacuation and go to safe grounds? So my question to you, Marcie, what does it mean when you look at these 4 elements of early warning? How can those be designed to ensure that they are accessible and inclusive of persons with disabilities?
It's a great question, Stefanie. And one of the things that I know we've been working really hard on is trying to do a stock take to find out what the status is of early warnings. We need information on the front end. How many of you, and I'm only speaking to the audience here in the room, but I will ask the question of people online as well, how many of you know what your early warning accessibility is at this time in your community? How many of you know what that is? Okay, we have 2 people who raised their hands here. One of them is in a country where they are using their early warnings on a daily basis, and as a leader in the disability community, Yulia Sejcik knows the answer to that, because unfortunately she gets alerts and warnings in Ukraine many times a day. And the other person who raised their hand, Rhiannon, is a researcher doing incredible work trying to find out about early warnings. But the important thing is the rest of you don't know what the circumstances are for early warnings in your community. That doesn't just mean the accessibility of your early warnings. You are probably not very well aware of how your early warning system works. You may get something on your phone. It may or may not be accessible. You may or may not get information that's actionable. And so when we talk about this whole process, we have to start with a stock take. And so we have proposed a comprehensive look at what is happening across the globe in terms of those early warnings, so that we can then begin to apply technology solutions, collaborations, the leadership of people with disabilities to drive improvements, not just for people with disabilities. We need to make sure that older people have the information that they need. We need to make sure that people whose first language is not the language that warning is being delivered in. And we need to make sure that people know what to do if they are alerted. So those are just some of my first thoughts.
And do you have, like, because you work a lot around the world, some examples where you felt like that is a really good start, an experience where you said that is scratching in where we should go?
Yeah, so I wish there were all sorts of great examples of notifications that are accessible. Yulia raised her hands a few minutes ago. I have seen that the accessible alerts in Ukraine are far better than in many other places. Why? Because disability community leaders are demanding it. In places where there are frequent disasters and strong disability leadership, we're seeing that information is being delivered in ways that are usable. The flip side of that is I have seen time and time again the massive failures of the alert and warning systems. In Maui, Hawaii, the huge wildfires last year, there was a decision made not to operate the warning system because that system had only been designed for one kind of hazard, and that was tsunami. And they were afraid if they turned on that system that would drive people to evacuate in the wrong direction. Because what they had taught people was you evacuate up. And during these fires, the last thing you wanted people to do was to evacuate up into the hills. So we've seen some really good examples, and we've also seen huge need for both all hazards warnings and very specific actions, technologies, and practice. The communities that are practicing their alerts and warnings and evacuation are communities that are far better equipped to know what to do when disaster strikes.
Yeah. You talk about equipment and a bit of the technology and warning. And I was very inspired sitting yesterday in the award ceremony about the inspiration that comes out of this conference here. And, what is it that the role and looking at the time technology can play? And also we are very happy that, the Project Zero is also looking into innovation on the topic of crisis management and risk reduction and probably early warning. Where do you think that, first of all, plays technology a role, and then what can an organization like yours or colleagues that are sitting here contribute to make things better?
So technology, I think we would all agree that technology is key. It is not the only piece of the solution, but it is key to solutions. And the World Institute on Disability has been working on some really exciting solutions. We're in fact going to roll some of that out at the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in June in Geneva. We are working with a company called Infinite Access, infiniteaccess.io, so take a peek. And it is a way of bringing a variety of accessible solutions together in ways that will then give people the opportunity to customize their emergency alerts so that they work for them, where they need them, when they need them, and how they need them. So technology is fundamental to this process for individuals, but it also requires that governments and communities and businesses and innovators are all working to ensure that the latest and greatest technology is being driven by accessibility, that all technology is born accessible and that it continues to be measured by people with disabilities. The World Institute on Disability has a cadre of user testers. We're testing some of these products and services to make sure they really do work. And when we get this right for people with disabilities, the whole community benefits. And I think we all know that. Here at the Zero Conference, that's such a central piece of all of the innovation. Get it right for people with disabilities, and you're going to get it right for the whole community.
Thank you, Marcie. And as we're running out, my plea is please come to the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, because it's really accessible to all and we can make a big noise on the disability, and you can meet with policymakers as well. With that, thank you, Marcie, and thank you for all for being here.
Thank you, everybody.